All right. So we're going to be talking about mission of Navy ships. This is my favorite part of this program. I love this part. It's just a lot of fun to me. I've been on ships. I love being at sea. It is, it's you get a perspective of your smallness, like nothing you've ever experienced. Because it's kind of this, it's almost this transcendent experience where you're out there, and particularly when they shut off all the lights on the ship, they'll shut off some lights. There'll be a couple of lights that they'll still have on, but like if they shut off all the flight deck lights and you go out and you look up, and there are billions and billions and billions and billions of stars. It's nothing like what you see right now. It's just, it's it's mind blowing the number of stars that you see, and you can actually see the Milky Way. You can see it spread across the sky. It's mind numbing. Planets, planets are brilliant. I mean, they really shine bright. So it's not like right now. I think at certain times of the night you can see Venus, and you can see Saturn, and you can see Jupiter. All right, but the but when you're at sea, these things, the intensity of these planets is like nothing you've ever seen. And so to me, it's worth it just to go to sea for that. Not on a cruise ship. If you're on a cruise ship, there's too many lights. You still won't see as much. You'll have to find a spot that's pretty dark to be able to do it. But even still, there'll be some light pollution. You won't be able to see as much. So we want to identify the ships of the Navy and understand how they fulfill the Navy's mission. We want to explain the mission of Navy ships and explain ship terminology. 2 to 3 things you already know about ships or boat. Anybody want? What's something you know about a ship or a boat? Tell me. The what? The beam is the widest part of the boat. That's right. That's right. That's a good starting point. All right, let's get going. Okay, let's talk about key terms. I'm going to zoom ahead, and actually, I'm not going to zoom ahead. Let's go ahead and get a couple of these things done. Steadiness or order in the international political team. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that is, I want to say that's stability. So there you go. All right, prevention of war by instilling fear in potential enemies. So, and the answer to that, I want to say, is deterrence. I think it's deterrence. Good. Okay, and then referring to a country's long-range weapons or plans, the big picture, and that would be strategic. Okay, because we have like Strategic Air Command, or what used to be called Strategic Air Command, and that was the bombers that we had, the Air Force bombers that we had that were outfitted with nuclear bombs and things like that. So, and it wasn't for us to go and destroy somebody else. It was so that we could retaliate. And that is what would keep people from launching nukes at us, is knowing that we would retaliate. So it's called mutually assured destruction. All right, referring to short-range weapons or to assets used in support of ground forces, that is tactical. Good. All right, good. All right, referring to help given to individuals in need, such as assistance to disaster victims, without regard to military or political concerns. Somebody raise your hand and tell me what it is. Soraya? C, humanitarian. That is correct. Good. All right. All right. Humanitarian. All right, the weight of volume of water that a ship displaces when afloat. In other words, the weight of a ship by itself. And that is called displacement. That's the weight of water that the ship displaces floating in the water. Okay. I can't hear you. Berth, we're going to get there. That's a ship term. So, but it's not birth. It's not a maternity ward. So, birth, yep. Like a birthing compartment, and is a place where you sleep. Yep. 1 nautical mile per hour, or about 1.15 statute land miles per hour. What do you want to guess that is? It's D. It's a knot. Yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, I'm going to skip all these since we just covered these. Strategy, by the way, is a country's top-level political and military plan. So, all right, how much experience do you have with boats? You can even say power boats. It's fine. Like if you go water skiing and that kind of stuff. Sailboat. I love sailboats. Sailing's one of my. I learned how to sail in San Francisco Bay. That right there, that's a trial by fire right there. That's some rough water and some high winds. It really is. All right. All right. The mission of the U.S. Navy is to maintain, train, and equip combat-ready naval forces capable of winning wars. What's the word? Huh? Deterring aggression and maintaining the freedom of the seas. That's it. I wonder where we've heard that before. All right. So, purpose of the Navy ships is to carry out the military strategy of the United States. This involves peacetime engagement, deterrence and conflict prevention, and the ability to fight and win. Peacetime engagement is it places forces around the world during peacetime to promote economic and political stability. It encourages free trade and peaceful connections among nations by ensuring security of the seas. So, in a real world example, China is saying you can't come into the South China Sea. And we say, oh, yeah, watch us. And we do. We will go through the South China Sea all of the time. And it makes China so mad. They're like, that's our territorial water. We're like, no, it's not. It is international water. If we get within 25 miles of your coast, then we are in your territorial waters. But South China Sea, it is open for commerce. Deterrence and conflict prevention is derived from the adage, if you seek peace, prepare for war. Strategically places combat power where it cannot be ignored. It creates presence so that potential enemies are less likely to become hostile. Hey, there is something to be said about a big aircraft carrier off of your coast because it intimidates them. All right. Mission of Navy ships, fight and win, means that U.S. forces must be ready for combat at all times. The mission of the Navy, and we've already explained this, maintain, train, and equip combat-ready naval forces capable of winning wars, deterring aggression, and maintaining freedom of the seas. Executing this mission involves 4 areas: strategic deterrence, projection of power ashore, sea control, and naval presence. We'll talk about each of these. Strategic deterrence is primarily through nuclear submarines. So particularly ballistic missile submarines. We have these submarines that will carry 24 Trident missiles. On each one of those Trident missiles, each of these Trident missiles can carry anywhere between 8 and 12 what do they call it? Warheads is what they are. They're warheads, but they call them MIRVs, which is like multiple independent re-entry vehicles. Multiple independent re-entry vehicles, and the warheads are in these things. So this thing goes up into the stratosphere. It actually gets over. It'll actually get over the country's target, and then it'll open up and it'll deploy all these warheads, and they'll go to different targets. And then when they explode, there is nothing anymore. It's complete annihilation of everything. Okay, of everything. Nobody lives through this. Everybody dies. All property just gets destroyed. And so you ask yourself, why in the world do we have a weapon like this? Why do we have a weapon like this, Soraya? Okay, hang on a second. Let me ask my question first, and then I'll answer yours. Why? Anybody know? Because the bad guys have got them too. Bad guys have got them too. And if they know that we will completely annihilate them, they're less likely to try and annihilate us. Soraya, you had a question. Huh? So you may survive the blast, but there's a thing called nuclear fallout. And nuclear fallout is essentially all of that stuff that got blasted. All of the stuff you got blasted, nuclear. Yeah, they're all nuclear. All that stuff that got blasted, it creates a big old vacuum after it explodes. And then it sucks everything back in. And then when it sucks back in, it all collides in the middle, and it goes up, and then it goes out and forms that mushroom cloud, and then it just rains down all of this stuff, and it's all radioactive. That's called fallout. And all of that stuff poisons living things. So it will make you sick to the point of death. And so there's no survival. There's no survival. So remember, strategic deterrence, it's not to scare you. It is for the purpose of keeping the bad guys at bay, keeping them from becoming bad actors. Yes? Yeah, you can't stay underground forever. You got to come out. So, and it takes decades and decades. In the meantime, you're going to run out of water. Yeah, it just gets absorbed. All right, so submarines. We use submarines for strategic deterrence. They're nuclear powered. They're covert for months. In other words, they stay under the water for a long time. They're fast and maneuverable, and then they're multiple targeting. So submarines, the ballistic missile submarine, not only does it carry Trident missiles, but it also carries torpedoes too. Fast attack boats are a little bit different. They carry Tomahawk missiles, and then they also have like Sea Sparrow missiles, and then which are anti-ship missiles, and then they also have torpedoes, which are anti-ship weapons. Yeah.
What's it like working on a submarine?
It's pretty quiet. It's pretty quiet. You stink. You smell like amine. Amine is this chemical that they use for cleansing the carbon dioxide out of the air. So what happens is they blow air through this machine, and then they super chill it, and then it draws the carbon dioxide out of the air and traps it in amine. And then what they do is then they'll heat it up, and then they'll store it, and then they'll pump it over the side. So, but everybody smells like amine. So, no, it's not. Okay, so I'm skipping the video on the submarines. So, all right, sea control, referring to keeping seas open to the U.S., its allies, and other friendly nations, as well as denying potential enemies access. An example of force supporting sea control is Operation Anaconda. I hate this example. This one's not a really great one. But I will tell you a better one is the Cuban Missile Crisis. We blockaded Cuba to keep the Soviet Union back in 1960. It's much earlier than that. 60. I want to say it's like either 59 or 60. I can't remember. It was Kennedy. So if it was Kennedy, that would have been 61 or 62. I think it was 61. 61 or 62. Anyway. But anyway, we blockaded and we didn't let the Soviets bring the missiles over. They were bringing nuclear missiles and they were going to station them in Cuba, which basically means it's a short flight for them to destroy us. And we wouldn't be able to retaliate as easily. All right, projection of power ashore refers to the use of the seas to carry a fight with a potential enemy beyond U.S. borders to enemy soil using missiles and tactical aircraft. So we use aircraft to take the fight to the enemy, and they drop bombs on them. And you can see some of the videos on YouTube of bombs that drop. And they drop these bombs like right down an air conditioner shaft, and then it blows up everything inside. Yes.
Usually when I think of that, I think of the beginning scene in Narnia. Yeah, where they're dropping the bombs and they're going all over.
Yes, yeah. Except for those were not guided. Those were not laser guided munitions. They were just willy nilly. So they just dropped them and then they destroyed civilians. When we go to war, we do everything within our power to minimize collateral damage. We do everything we can to not hurt non-combatants. And a non-combatant can still be a bad guy. They may have a different ideology. They may be fully behind the bad guys, but if they're not a fighter, we don't want to hurt them. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that is something we'll have to discuss at another time. I think there's a legitimate reason for using those weapons. I do. A lot of people would disagree with me on it, but the loss of life from Nagasaki and Hiroshima is a smaller fraction of the number of people that would have died had we invaded the country of Japan. So, all right, naval presence refers to the ability to be visible on open seas anywhere in the world as a silent but powerful threat. The implied threat of action. People don't want to mess with us. An example of force supporting naval presence are humanitarian missions. So we do good things. The Navy does good things. They didn't like, years ago we had this slogan that was called a force for good. And the problem is that it made it sound like the Navy was only useful for humanitarian work. And we're not that way. We do humanitarian work, but it is one of the missions that we do. We also train for war. We also fight and win wars too. And those are very important for the purpose of keeping the sea lanes open so that world economy stays stable, so that bad actors don't hurt innocent people. So, all right, the Navy strategy of deterrence and conflict prevention is based on the adage, if you seek what, prepare for what? If you seek peace. If you seek peace, prepare for war. All right, that's what we have to do. That was also something that Ronald Reagan would say too. All right, how many times have enemy military forces landed on U.S. soil? And I think the answer is 3 times. One was the Revolutionary War. One was the War of 1812, and then the other one was in World War II when the Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. All right, ship terminology. What's the head? It's the bathroom. All right, so upstairs means topside. Downstairs is below. We go below. The floor is the deck. You'll hear me refer to some of these things. The ceiling's the overhead as a bulkhead. The hallway is a passageway. You hear me use some of these terms interchangeably. And then, of course, the bathroom's the head. All right, directions. When we go to the front of a ship, we're going forward. If we head to the back of the ship, we're going aft. Yes? Yeah, come on. You can move over here. All right. When we cross the ship, if we go across it, we're going athwart ships. And then the front of the ship is the bow, the rear of the ship's the stern. The fantail is at the back of the ship. That's the very back edge. The fantail is at the stern. It's not on here, but the fantail is at the stern. When you go towards the stern, you go aft. When you go towards the bow, you go forward. All right, so here it is. This first one is the bow. That is, and if we go in that direction, we're going forward. The back end of the ship is the stern. And if we go down, if we're going towards the stern, we're heading aft. And if we cross the ship, we're going athwart ships. If you're on the stern of the ship and you want to go toward the bow, you would be going forward. If you're on the bow of the ship and you want to go towards the stern, you're going aft. The anchor on a ship is forward of the gun mount, okay, but it's after the bow. All right. The fantail on a ship is aft of the flight deck, and it's forward of this missile launcher. The flight deck. I'm sorry, the flight deck. It is so the flight deck. The flight deck is forward of the missile launcher, and it is aft of the superstructure. So, all right, when facing forward, the port side's on your left, the starboard side's on your right, okay, and that runs on center line. All right, fixtures and equipment are often identified with their location as in port or starboard and on the center line. Huh? I've already moved on. I'm sorry. So, it'll be online. So it will be online. If you go from the port side or the starboard side to the center line, you're going inboard. If you're going from the inboard from the center line to the gunnels, which is on either side of the ship, and you're heading outboard. Section around the midpoint of the ship is called the midships. The widest part of the ship is called the beam. All right, people and things are referred to differently on a ship. The crew of a ship lives in or on board the ship, but objects, stores, and equipment are aboard a ship. Okay, so I go on board, but if I take something with me, I'm taking that something aboard the ship. So, and it's a little confusing. I don't think that's on the test. So, a person will board a ship or they will go on board and supplies are taken aboard. If you climb the mast, stacks, rigging, or any other area above the highest solid structure, you're going aloft. So if you're going up the superstructure, then you're going aloft. But on a ship, an object hanging against the side, bow, or stern is over the side. It's over the side. So ship A is off the starboard quarter of ship B. So it's off the starboard side of ship B. Remember, it's the right side, but it's aft into the right. So it is off the starboard quarter. So it'd be like if you take the ship and you cut it into quarters, it's off that back right quarter. How do you differentiate between the front and aft quarter, the forward and the aft quarter? So imagine the center line, and then imagine the ship cut in half at the fore and aft point, right?
Like what would you call it?
So the forward part, the forward starboard side, and then the aft starboard, and then the forward port side, and then the aft port side. And if you're a ship and you're off the aft starboard side, then you're off the starboard quarter of the ship. See? All right. So the USS Benefold is ahead of the USS Shoup, and it's astern of the USS Shiloh. I'm sorry, not Shoup. Yeah. Benefold is ahead of the Shoup and is astern of the Shiloh. All right. Backbone of a ship is its keel. They lay a keel when they're building a ship, and it's the backbone of the ship. Now, keels, it used to be they would lay the keel and then they would build the ribs and structures off the side of it. They don't do that anymore. The keel is actually on the inside of the hull, which we'll talk about the hull in a minute. Most steel ships have flat keels. So, all right, the backbone of the ship is the keel. Most the transverse frames cross the keel. So the keel is kind of what holds it all together. It's not like in Forged in Fire. Have you ever watched that show? Forged by Fire. When he gets there, he goes, "It will kill." It's not that. So it's different. So you remember?
I mean, I watched the show.
Yeah, I like the show. All right. So we have the shell, but it's actually called the hull plating. All right. The hull is the part that sits in the water. All right. The supporting body is its hull, functioning similar to a supportive envelope. You have transverse bulkheads. Bulkheads are walls. But a transverse bulkhead divides the ship into compartments for different things. And then if one of those compartments floods, the whole ship won't go down if that one floods, because there are other compartments that are watertight. So, all right, here's a watertight door. Bulkheads can run transverse or longitudinal. Okay, means so transverse is across, or longitudinal is this way, fore and aft. Transverse is port and starboard. Longitudinal is fore and aft. Some are just partitions like room dividers with doors and that kind of stuff. So when facing forward, the port side is on your, it's on the left, which means the starboard side is on your right. All right, civilian language to Navy language. Upstairs means, wall means, floor means, deck. Very good. All right, you'll know what I'm talking about if I take you to Patriots Point. All right, so overview of an aircraft. It says aircraft carrier, but I don't think this is, we're not worried, but this is a bad heading. The water level on a ship's hull is called its water line, okay? That's where the ship floats. That's its marks. It's what we call its marks. The water line is supposed to be at the surface of the water. The freeboard is the distance from the water line to the gunnel, which is to the main deck. Okay, the gunnel is where the main deck and the hull meet. Okay, the vertical distance between the lowest part of the keel and the water line is called its draft. So if we say that the draft of a ship is 9 feet, we're saying that there is 9 feet of ship below the water line to the keel. Y'all get what I'm saying? Huh? It's terribly important. So if you've got if your ship draws 9 feet or has a draft of 9 feet, and you go into 8 feet of water, what's going to happen? You're going to run aground, right? So that's why draft is very important. Decks divide a ship into layers or floors and provide additional strength and protection for internal spaces. All ships have rooms, but most rooms are called something else, like a birthing compartment. Birthing compartment's not where we give birth and have babies. Birthing compartment's where we sleep and live. So I had when I was on the Enterprise in the Saratoga, I had a berth, but we usually called it a bunk or a rack. So, but berthing is where you sleep.
Was it comfortable?
Oh yeah, it's comfortable, especially nice because my rack was fore and aft, so when the ship would roll, it'd rock you to sleep. It's nice. Huh? What if what? Oh, you sleep like a baby. Oh yeah. Except when the waves crash against the hull. When the waves crash against the hull, then it'll make a big boom. No, I never rolled out of my rack. So, all right, we'll continue on. And then we also have a mess deck for eating. All right, weather deck is a deck exposed to weather. The complete deck extends side to side and about astern. The main deck is the uppermost complete deck on a regular ship. So you can see the weather deck. This is also the main deck too. All right. You may not, the deck may be interrupted by this superstructure, but if you were to walk through a door on the front end of this, you'd still be on the same deck that would go all the way to the back. So. All right, on an aircraft carrier, the weather deck is a deck exposed to the weather. The complete deck, okay, extends from side to side about astern main deck. So the main deck on an aircraft carrier is the hangar deck. This is going to say it's the flight deck, but it's not the flight deck. It's the hangar deck. That's the main deck. All right, and that's what this one says right here. All right, decks are connected by ladders and watertight hatches. We go through hatches to go between decks. We go through doors to go from compartment to compartment. Now, if you were to go over to North Augusta and you were to say, hey, Master Guns, where's your office? You go right over there behind that hatch. Because Marines think hatches are doors, but they're wrong. They just do it to be rebellious. That's all it is. So hatches go between decks. Bulkheads are connected by doors, okay? And we go between compartments this way. The watertight doors are held closed by fittings called dogs, okay? Now, on these things, there's on the back side of this door, we have what's called the knife edge, and and then on the inside, there's this rubber seal that goes through it, and the knife edge goes up against it, and then we use the dogs. We'll use the dogs to press the door so that knife edge digs into the rubber so that it seals up. That's why you get a watertight door. The forecastle is the forward position on the weather deck. It's spelled forecastle, okay? But we don't call it that. We call it the forecastle, okay? It's kind of like a BOATSWAIN. What would you call that? BOATSWAIN. It's not boatswain or boatswain. It's bosun.
Oh, yeah.
And then what do you call a COXSWAIN? COXSWAIN. Reads like coxswain, doesn't it? We don't call him that. We call him coxswain. Coxswain. That's a boat driver, a small boat driver. That's what that is. Come. All right. Though not an actual deck, the quarter deck is an area the commanding officer designates for ceremonial functions. Okay, and it can be anywhere. It can be anywhere. It can be on the flight deck during flight quarters. 5 minutes. Ship size and speed. The size of a ship is given in terms of its displacement in tons, fully loaded and ready to deploy. Okay, the Avenger displaces 1,312 tons. Okay, ships are identified by name and designation. So USS means United States ship. If it has a USS designation, it is a commissioned man of war. It's a warship. And we call man of war is an old term, but we still use them today too. In this case, the Nimitz is the ship's name. CVN is its type. So CV is the abbreviation for aircraft carrier. What do you think the N stands for? Nuclear powered, okay? And then 68 is its hull number. So 68 was the USS Nimitz. 69 was the USS Carl Vinson. 70, I think, is the Abraham Lincoln. I can't remember all of them, but armament is the ship's offensive weapons, such as guns, rockets, and aircraft. Armor is the ship's protective layers of steel. So that hull is also its armor. It's its protection. A berthing compartment is used for what?
Sleeping.
And a mess deck is used for eating. Good. All right. What's the forecastle? A or B?
B. No, B is B.
B is the forecastle. All right. 2 to 3 reasons submarines are very valuable to our nation's defense.
Unnoticeable.
That's right. They travel on the water. They can't see them, and they are less likely if one of these things is off the coast of Russia. Russia is a lot less likely to shoot any missiles at America because we could annihilate them with one submarine. Yes. Russia. Yep. Y'all have any questions? All right.